Let me ask you something. Have you ever walked into one of your classrooms and seen students busy? Papers moving, Chromebooks open, anchor charts up, and still had this little nudge in your spirit that said, I'm not sure that they're actually learning. That tension right there, that's the difference between just good old activity and actual growth. Hi, friend. Are you ready to move into a leadership position? Do you have interests and ambitions that you want to pursue, but feel like you don't know how to take that next step? Maybe you want to start your own coaching or consulting agency. I'm Mel, and I help educators define their career path through correct mindset, knowing your options, and getting prepared for your career transition. I will show you how to level up your leadership skills, share your expertise in a new way, create impact on a larger scale, and put your leadership in motion. As an educator for over 20 years, I started to feel underused and like I had more to give. I knew when the time had come for me to leave the classroom and affect change on a larger level. Now, I'm ready to help you determine where your talents and skills mesh with your passions and interests. Put your leadership in motion and move into that next phase of your educational career journey. Let me help you define your career path by having the right mindset, knowing your options, and getting prepared for that next leadership position. So power up and put your leadership in motion. Hey guys, welcome to the Empowered Educator Show. I'm your host, Dr. Mel Vandevort. All right. So let's talk about something that I think every building leader wrestles with, especially at this time of year. Your teachers are working hard. They're planning. They're grading. They're running small groups. At least hopefully they are. That's another whole episode that I will do one of these days about small groups. But let's get back on topic. And from the outside, it looks like momentum. But you and I both know that busy does not always or automatically equal impact. So if I were in that classroom with you, I would say, let's make sure we're not rewarding motion over mastery, because activity is visible, but actual growth is measurable. And as a principal, you've got to know the difference. Here's what I mean. Activity feels productive because it's loud and visible. Worksheets are getting completed. Projects are being done and turned in. Stations are rotating. Teachers are exhausted at the end of the day, which it really should be kids being exhausted at the end of the day. And if your teachers are exhausted and your kids are not, that's a conversation you need to have about what's going on in the classroom, which is what we're talking about. If you're seeing exhausted teachers, is there growth? Is there proof that there's growth? If I asked, what's one thing that your students couldn't do 3 weeks ago that they can do now? And where's the data that shows that conceptual understanding? Can students transfer this skill to a new situation? That's where this conversation shifts. As a leader, you don't just ask, did this lesson go well? You ask, what changed in student understanding because of this lesson? Now that's the leadership move. I love engagement strategies. You know I do. But kids being excited is not the finish line. Students can be laughing, be collaborating, be moving, and be participating and still not deeply understand the content. So when you're in walkthroughs, shift your lens from, are students doing something, to, what are students saying, writing, and explaining? When I am in a classroom, guys, I am asking kids, what are you doing? What are you supposed to be doing? What are you understanding about this lesson? What are you supposed to know at the end of this lesson? Mastery shows up in student language. If they can explain it, if they can defend it, if they can apply it, now you're looking at growth. And that's what we need to be measuring. So here's something I want you to notice in your building. When teachers are stuck in activity mode, or what we like to call performance mode, they're constantly tired. Why? Because they're managing tasks and then probably behaviors. But when teachers see real growth in their students, that fuels them. When a struggling reader finally decodes independently, or when a student explains their math reasoning confidently, or when writing improves because of targeted feedback to those students. That's not just progress for students. That's oxygen for your teachers. That's fuel for them. I loved it when I saw true learning, when the kids were like, I got it. That was so good for me as a teacher. It felt so good and so rewarding. So your job as a principal is to move that conversation from what are you doing next week to show me the evidence that you have that what you did with this last lesson worked. That shift alone can change culture. So here's the heart of it, guys. Activity is about movement, but growth is about transformation. As a building leader, you set the expectation for what matters. If you don't know the data, if you don't understand the data, if you don't know what's happening in the classrooms, it shows that you're not invested. If you celebrate busyness, you'll get more busyness. But if you celebrate measurable growth, you'll get intentional instruction. And the truth, guys, your school doesn't need more activity. I'm sure it's got plenty of it. I'm in the halls in my building and I see that. Kids are out there, they're high-fiving each other, they're talking in the halls. But when they're in the classroom, there needs to be more impact. This week, I want you to try something simple. In your next coaching meeting, I want you to ask one question. What evidence do you have that students grew? Not what you taught, not what you planned, not what was completed. And if there's growth, celebrate it. If there hasn't been growth, then you need to be in the classroom more often. You need to know what's happening. You need to give one bite-sized piece of real-time feedback and then follow up the next week. And you need to be having these conversations whole group as well, because you're going to learn a lot about where your culture really is. And when teachers hear other teachers talking about real growth, they're not going to want to be left behind. You don't have to know everything to lead well, guys, but you do have to decide what you're going to measure. And when you measure growth, not just activity, you build a school that's not just busy, it's transformative. And that's the kind of leadership that leaves a legacy. And remember, guys, keep going that extra mile to motivate, inspire, lead, and empower your teachers. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.